Hello and welcome to my re-review of the Spyderco Military. It's a re-review because I like to go over my old knife reviews but put them up in 4K resolution. If you look at my older knife videos, my earliest videos were all about knives. They're in 720p, they're recorded on a point and shoot camera, so I want to bring them out in a much better quality, and I think my videos have improved from sort of 5 years ago. Every Sunday I release a non-Warhammer video, or typically a non-Warhammer video, and that can be anything from a knife review to a motorcycle video, even like a game review, or a collection update, or an electronics unboxing, something like that, but I try and keep it non-Warhammer. The weather has been great, so you can expect some motorcycle videos coming back to the channel. So without further ado, let's have a look at the Spyderco Military. Now, this was one of my first, I say, big boy knives, one of my first kind of expensive Spydercos. This is like a mainstream Spyderco. One of these cost me back in sort of December 2012, so over 5 years ago now, £150. This same knife now costs £210, so that's a £60 increase in 5 years, pretty much just over £10 every year. Now let's compare that to the American price right now. I've looked at a couple of stores and they have this up for about $174, which is about £120, which is still less than what I paid 5 years ago. The equivalent now of the £209 is $290, so it's about £90 more, or $120 more, at the moment than it is in the United Kingdom. So if you live in the UK and you like collecting knives and things and you're planning a trip to America, it's worth ordering a couple of knives while you're there, because you definitely save, well, hundreds and hundreds of pounds. So anyway, let me go through all the specifications of the knife. The overall length, that's open of course, is 9.5 inches or 24 centimeters, quite a long knife. The blade length is 4 inches or 10 centimeters long. The cutting edge length is 3.6 inches or 9 centimeters, and the weight is 4.25 ounces or 124 grams. Let me just talk about the length. Of course, the cutting edge length is longer than 3 inches, and the fact that it's got a locking mechanism means you can't, legally carry it in the UK without an extremely good reason. I don't want to delve too much into UK knife law, but pretty much any knife that locks is counted as a fixed blade in the court of law, and fixed blades aren't legal to carry. The weight of the knife is 124 grams, so it's a little bit above my kind of sweet spot of about 100 grams, but not by much. Although it's a big knife, it doesn't feel too weighty, even in some tracksuit bottoms or some jeans or whatever. It has got this long blade on here with a lovely point. The lock is nice and secure. It's a liner lock. It's quite a solid lock. The scales, they may have just caught your eye. They're G10 scale, and they're called digi-cam. What's great about Spyderco is when they manufacture these, which it's made in Golden, Colorado, in the USA. I don't know why they put earth, but they put earth when it's made in America, but not for every other country. But what's important about the digi-cam is they have this big sheet of G10 digi-cam, and when they punch out all of the scales from the sheet, they're all slightly different. You're never necessarily going to get two exact same military knives with the handles. Take my paramilitary 2, for instance. This knife comes in a variety of flavours, everything from this kind of, I don't know, vanilla blade with the satin finish and the digi-cam, everything from the military with a black blade to black handle scales. They also do some sprint runs of this knife. They do an S90V version with different metals for the blade as well. There are no liners in the knife, which helps reduce its weight, so no cutouts or anything like that. There's just the liner lock itself, which is integrated into the scales themselves. There's only a small kind of back spacer, I want to call it. So very lightweight for the size and strength of this knife. I don't think they could have really taken any more weight off it other than to put holes in the handle, which of course may compromise the knife's overall strength. It's all held together with torque screws. I've taken this knife apart and put it back together before. Quite straightforward torque screws. The pocket clip is a nice solid firm pocket clip. It is only tip down carry though, so just bear that in mind, that you're not going to be able to move that pocket clip around like you can on the Paramilitary 2. You can do tip up, tip down, left right carry with the Paramilitary 2, so it is limited in that regard. The blade steel itself, you can see there, laser etched Spyderco CPM S30V blade steel. Little Spyderco symbol there, and I've already mentioned Golden, Colorado, where it's made. S30V, it's a very decent blade steel. It's a hard blade steel too, which means you can get a nice sharp edge to it, and it's going to hold that edge a long time. However, it is going to be harder to sharpen because it's a harder steel. The blade edge itself would rather chip than fold, unlike I don't know, VG10 or N690 steel, but it's got very high corrosion resistance, rust resistance too. There's also a Spyderco Military with titanium handles if you want to go that way. I think they're similar weight. Ergonomic wise, very, very comfortable knife. I find the Paramilitary 2 more comfortable, but I think that this knife would be more suited if you're wearing gloves. It just gives you a little bit more real estate to grip your hands around. Yes, I will say that the pocket clip does kind of get in your way a little bit. That's been mentioned a few times, especially when you want to be precise. It can get in the way because you're not one with the knife there. I would have preferred it on the butt of the knife. But still, you can still perform some fine detail working, but with a blade this size, it's quite thick, I want to say, but I wouldn't sort of trust it with prying. I wouldn't really pry many things with the knife, only in like extreme circumstances. It's also got a thumb ramp there with some cutouts or jimping, and a finger choil there, both on the liner lock and on the finger choil itself. It means you can really get some good purchase and precision work with the knife. You can obviously hold it towards the butt of the knife. That's quite good for egress, I suppose. It's quite firm. You've got a good grip on it, especially if you've got the knife sort of closed, because then you've got some purchase here on the thumb ramp using your index finger. So you can really use it as a blunt instrument too. The lanyard hole itself, you can't put 550 like you can put through the Paramilitary 2, but you could put some kind of cord through that. This is a great kind of like a backup blade if you've got a main larger sort of fixed blade, if you're in the forces or whatever. I don't think it's too big for a backup blade as well. It's got a nice solid lock, and it's definitely very durable. For EDC or everyday carry, yeah, 120 grams is still very light for a knife this large. The Resilience, for instance, that has a worse blade steel, and that is 144 grams. So for this one to be weighing a lot less and have a much better blade steel, then it really is the better choice. I think it has a legendary status among knife collectors. It is a true classic, and it can be quite intimidating the first time you show someone this or use it, definitely more than like a Paramilitary 2. Anyway, let me show you some size comparisons. So next to my everyday carry in the United Kingdom, which is it needs a bit of a clean, Spyderco Urban. That's got the N690 blade steel, which I do prefer to the S30V. Then I've got the UK PK here, which is another UK legal to carry knife. That's got the CTS BD1 steel. That's a little bit longer than the Urban. And then the Paramilitary 2, which is, longer than both of those. And was really an evolution from the military. It is lighter. It's got this lovely compression lock, which when you lube the joint up in there, it really can fly out. Also, the torque screws are bigger. You tip up, tip carry. Still the same blade steel, and made in America too. And the larger lanyard hole for some 550 cord, and a larger hole or deployment hole. So it really is up to you if you want more real estate for the blade. but you can't go wrong with either of those two. I hope that size comparison helps. So in summary, it's one of my favourite go-to knives, and definitely one of my favourites in my Spyderco collection. Yes, it's a shame that it's now, you know, it's almost £60 more than it was 5 years ago, but that's just how these things play out, unfortunately. Would I spend £210 on it now? Possibly. If your income has increased by 50%, 10% a year, then yeah, that's a no-brainer, of course, but I don't think everybody's has. However, if you do bite the bullet and decide to go for it, you won't be disappointed. I don't think it's worth £210 at all. I think it is worth what the Americans pay for it, which is between 120, and what I paid for it was 150. A £200 knife, in my opinion, has to be something really special, like a one-off with exotic blade steel, like CTS XHP or something like that, not the standard sort of made in America, run-of-the-mill, mass-produced knife. I really don't think the price tag nowadays is worth it. And that's a great thing about my reviews, because I've never been given anything. I can say what on earth I like about them. Completely transparent, honest, open review where I give you my complete opinion, because I've spent my money on these things. But if you have got one and you did buy one quite a few years ago, then I'm sure you'll be feeling that it's a worthwhile addition to your own collections. If you do own a Spyderco Military, what's your best experience with it? Do you use it every day, and in what role? Please do put all your comments and things below. Thank you ever so much for joining me today. Thank you for watching. The Emperor protects.